Welcome back to the Law Shanty. You can see I got all dressed up this week. There's some weird things going on around here. My wife even said that my idea of getting dressed up has clearly devolved during the pandemic when I think throwing a jacket on over sweater and some jeans is getting dressed up. But I did get dressed up because I have a guest in the Law Shanty this week. She's not actually in the Law Shanty because we couldn't socially distance. The Law Shanty's kind of small. But I have Amanda Fielder with me this week. Amanda Fielder is one of our really brilliant employment litigators. But in addition to that, she's a member of the firm's management committee, and she's an integral part of our COVID-19 response team, which means that Amanda has been largely responsible for herding the cats and getting all this really cool stuff together for you, this cool content. So say hi, Amanda Fielder.
Hi, and two things. One, Zoe, this is being recorded and you just called me brilliant, which I am absolutely going to make sure you never forget. And two, had I thought that this COVID pandemic would be what it is in March of 2020, I don't know if I would have so willingly agreed to be part of what has been the show for the last 9 months now.
Well, that's the way it goes. You're stuck now. So, all right. So the reason Amanda's here, apart from the fact that she's one of my favorite people, is because Amanda did a webinar on Friday and there were some questions during that webinar that didn't get answered. So we thought rather than typing up emails, we would take this time to answer the questions. So as long as Amanda's ready, we're going to get right into it.
I am.
Ready? All right.
Okay, let's go.
Number one, are essential businesses exempt from the state work at home orders?
They are not. The essential and non-essential businesses, and that distinction was really something that was important when we were in a total lockdown back in April and May, and when certain businesses needed to be functioning and those essential workers were designated. That is no longer the case under my OSHA emergency rule. And in fact, I believe it's rule number 1 states that those rules apply to all employers covered in the Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Act. So there is no distinction. So. Okay.
That's a bummer for those people that are in essential industries, but that's the way it goes.
So the question is whether they can feasibly work at home. And that's the question.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And that's what we've been talking about for the last couple of episodes here. So question number 2, the CDC focuses on symptoms and counting days with regard to returning work after positives or after symptoms. The Michigan criteria has no reference to testing at all for a return to work criteria. With all that being said, under what circumstances can a negative test be useful?
Oh man, unfortunately, very few. And I did think, Steve, going into this, that it was going to be more like Jeopardy, where all I had to do was say, what is guidance? But that's clearly not the answer here. This one is much more extended. So under Section 5. You have to answer
the question and you get no money for it.
So under Section 5 of the Act, when it talks about an employee who tests positive or displays symptoms, cannot report to work unless several conditions are met. The first condition relates to an employee and their fever, and 24 hours have been passed since the fever. 2 is 10 days have passed since either of the following, and that is the date the employee's symptoms first appeared or the date the employee received the test that yielded positive results, and the employee's principal symptoms of COVID-19 have improved. So in those circumstances, a negative test doesn't do you any good if they're still symptomatic. On the other hand, remember, there is the rule that an employee might not be able to return to work if after 14 days from close contact with someone. Now, in that circumstance, if that individual that they had close contact with, so not the employee, but the other individual, has received a negative test, then that employee may come back to work. So that is one of those very limited areas where a negative test might be helpful.
And just so we're clear here, Amanda, we're not talking about a rule or a guidance or CDC. This is in the law, the new law, one of the 3 new laws that was just passed by the legislature, signed by the governor. This is actual law in the state of Michigan now.
It is, yes, it's there for us to respond to and have to deal with, even when the rules of everything else keep changing. That's our MIOSHA, our rules for Michigan.
Okay, question number 3, the last question. It could be read that employers can require a COVID test as a condition of employment. Amanda, final Jeopardy, is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. And we really, this is more of an analysis under the ADA. The ADA requires that any mandatory medical tests of employees be job related and consistent with business necessity. So what we have right now with the current circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic, employers may take screening steps to determine whether it's safe for employees to enter the workplace. So an employer may choose to administer a COVID-19 test to employees before initially permitting them to enter the workplace, and or periodically to determine if their presence in the workplace is a direct threat to others. We just really want to make sure that if we are doing that, that we're doing that consistently with all employees so that we don't run into any type of discriminatory complaint issues, and to ensure that the tests are considered accurate and reliable.
The other thing that I would point out there is there's some cost associated with this for the employer. If we're doing this with current employees, not applicants, where you have that window under the ADA, if you're doing it with current employees, you probably have to pay for the test. I say probably, you would definitely have to pay for the test. And you might even have to pay the employees for the time they spend going to get the test, if it's a condition of them returning to work. So you may have to do some cost benefit analysis there. Keep that in mind. Okay, that was all the questions we had. That went fast, didn't it?
Oh, but I didn't get to spend enough time with you. I miss you.
Well, I miss you too. Not really, but I do. And we'll do this again. Let me just remind you of a couple of things. We're going to continue to send out e-alerts, at least for the next couple of these on this. But we're going to try to get into a schedule so that these come out at a regular time on Tuesday or Wednesday during the week. We're going to try to do one a week, but I'm not going to promise anything because there's some work associated with these, despite the fact that they don't sound like there's some work associated with them. Thank you all for joining us. Everybody have a safe and healthy and wonderful Thanksgiving, and eat too much and forget about all your problems. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks for having me, Zoe. See ya.
Bye.